Well, hi there. It's the Great Southern Ancient Miniature Man, and I've got the Gothic Warriors from Wargames Atlantic box set, 30 figures, 28mm, quite new, and I've got to thank Wargames Atlantic, who generously sent them to me for purposes of this review. So you get 6 sprues. Let's get them up here. 6 sprues, all the same, and each one has 5 warriors on it. So let's take a peek at them. First thing you might notice is there's an absolute ton of heads. So I've had a look through, and there's 6. So there's 5 guys on each sprue, but 6 helmeted heads, so more than enough for everyone to have a helmet. And then there's actually 9 without helmets, just with their hair and beard. So there's 6 up the top there, but there's a few more scattered around the sprue. One there, couple down here in the corner. So very generous with the heads, and as far as I can see they're all unique, which is extra cool. Next thing I would point out, so there's quite a lot of options for how you're going to equip these guys. So you've got enough for them all to be spearmen. You've got 5 with spears, and then there's basically 3 of the other troop types that you can build with the kit. So you can have 3 archers, you can have 3 with swords, you can have 3 with axes. And you might notice just with the axes, it's a little bit of tricky construction. They've only got the hand attached, so you'd have to take one of these other arms and cut the hand off and then glue the hand where the other weapon would have been. So not a big deal, but slightly increased complexity. And similarly with the slings, you've got 3 slings here, but again they've just got the hand, so you'd have to chop off a hand and reattach. Other cool bits about the kit, there's this awesome Draco here, but again it doesn't have a pole on it, so presumably you're supposed to cut off the top of a spear and stick it in. It just has a little kind of recess there where you could potentially put a spear in. I presume that's what's designed for that. There aren't really any instructions about how to put these guys together, so you're a bit left to your own devices, which is not a problem really. You've got some nice quivers. One other thing that stands out, slight issue, is the lack of sidearms, or not total lack, but not quite enough for everyone. So you've got 3 scabbards here, and you've got 1 little knife over there, so 4 for 5 guys. So I just wonder why they didn't put 1 more in at least, so everyone could have one. Again, minor issue, but seems like that was an option. Should have been an option. Couple of other cool bits. You've got a few horn there, and this beautiful textured sort of fur cloak for one of the lucky guys to get to wear that. Show you the back side of the sprue. The other thing you might notice on the back side of the sprue is the shields. They're just flat, so there's no little recess to put the hand in, which is always nice to give a bit more stability when you've got some sort of recess. The other thing is there's only the one kind of shield, so 4 of them. So again, one guy misses out if you want them all to have shields. And there's the only one design, which is interesting given that some of their previous kits were extremely generous in the number of shields and the types of shields that they provided. And I'm particularly thinking of the Dark Age Irish box set, which has a ton of different shields and 4 different designs on the one sprue. So given the Goths, Germanic people, and they divided then into Ostrogoths and the Visigoths, and had some pretty unique and characteristic shields, like the coffin-shaped shield and the hexagonal shield. I just wonder why they didn't think to put some of them in. And I do wonder whether perhaps they're going to do another sprue that's purely Germanic shields, which would be brilliant. I would certainly buy it, because there's not a lot of options when you look around the internet for the usual suppliers of shields on their own for Germanic shields. The Wargames Foundry do have a set of metal ones. They're quite expensive, and they don't look that brilliant. I'll put a picture up in a bit, but if you're desperate for them, that's one place you can get them. But yeah, I mean, given if you had that diversity of shields, you could really use this kit for a huge span of time, going right back to classical era Germanic peoples, such as the Cherusci and the the Cimbri who invaded down into Cisalpine Gaul, Marcomanni, Harii, all sorts of Germanic people, and that's certainly I prefer that kind of era, and I'm still planning to kit bash some of these guys to be earlier Germanic ones, but I just think that was a little bit of a missed opportunity from Wargames Atlantic. They could have put in those other shields, and if you're interested in making a set of Germanic shields, plastic, put a comment down. They're certainly a company that seems to be very responsive to customer feedback, and I reckon that would be a brilliant addition to the sort of versatility of this kit, and you could use it with some others as well. They're also putting out a Frankish kit sometime in the future, and I'll put some pictures up of that. That looks absolutely fantastic, and I think that'll integrate well with this as well. The other thing to note is that they don't have either arm attached, and for me that's a great idea because it just gives you a heap more options of how to pose their arms. Tiny bit more work in that you've got to obviously attach two arms, but I've already just put a few together, and actually they go together really easily, and it's very straightforward, and they all bits fit together beautifully. So that's probably enough on the initial look at the sprue. I will bring out those guys that I've already assembled, and I'll give you a look at them, and it'll be painting time. Here they are, the initial one sprue's worth, 5 guys assembled. I'll do the shields separately. I'll just give you a quick look at each guy. I left the cloak off so I can do that separately, and I did get that Draco, and I've just stuck it onto a broom frond, and I'll give that to one of the guys. So nice spearman. The scabbards come with the hilt on it. I just cut that off so it looks more realistic. This one, not quite sure what he's up to really. I might add some. Not sure what I'll do with him. Anyway, it looks pretty cool. This one yelling out for reinforcements or taunting the enemy. Put the little side knife on for him. So they were very easy to assemble, and there's almost no sort of lines on them, mold lines, so very little to clean up before you stick them together. That was a pretty cool pose, pointing at his target. He'll be the guy who gets the cloak, so I've left his head off so I can do the cloak, stick that on, and then the head, and one archer diffraction, or just firing actually. So they've all got nice poses, so they're easy to assemble, great versatility with the arm positioning, and I'll get to work and see how they look painted. So what about shield transfers, you may well ask, and I'm glad you did, because there are in fact no shield transfers specifically made for these Wargames Atlantic Goth shields as yet. However, there are these ones I've got earlier. They're the little big man's ones, made for the gripping beast figures, Dark Age. So I'm just going to try one of them on one of these shields. They look to be just about the right size. They may be just a tiny bit big. I mean, they're almost identical except for the fact that on these ones you've got a little bit of a ridge around the edge. So what I might do is cut the shield transfer, cut that edge bit off. So this one, I won't have the red edge. I'll remove all that, and then it should be perfect fit, I reckon. And give it a burl. Let's see if it works. Cut that bit off. So I painted the face of the shield white, as you have to do with the Little Big Man Studio transfers if you've used them before. They're actually more of a sticker than a traditional transfer, so you just cut them and then you stick them face down onto the white shield. Put some water on the back of them then, and then here perfectly. So I've got a little plastic face on it, so you can kind of test fit. So that looks like it'll work quite well. I'll just have to paint the very edge of the shield later. So you peel that, whoops, clear plastic bit off, and just put it on, put it into position, squeeze it on quite firmly, and just a bit of water on the back there. Now let's see how it goes. I reckon it's going to be perfectly adequate for these shields. They're quite small, these shields, but cute. I like them. The really big shields tend to just obscure all the features of the last miniature that you've just made, so I prefer the slightly smaller ones. We'll give that a moment to work and see if it's going to do the job. Feeling pretty positive about it. Let's have a look. There we go. Bingo. I think that's perfect. So I'll just paint the edge of the rim there with a bit of red, and obviously the central boss bit will be silver. I probably needed to move it very slightly north because it's not quite symmetrical around the central shield boss, but anyway, that was my error. But yeah, I think those shield transfers are totally compatible, so that's a good option. The little big man ones for the Dark Age Gripping Beast figures. Righty ho, Wargames Atlantic Goths. Let's give them a look. So I had a lot of fun painting these guys. They are very versatile and easy to assemble. A couple of things that I mentioned when I was first looking at the sprue, which turned out to be not an issue. The first one being the fact that the shield has a flat back, no sort of recess for the hand. But what I didn't realise is that the hands are all designed on the back of the arm with a flat surface on them, so that the shield sticks perfectly to it without any great trouble. So you can ignore that first complaint. The other complaint I had was the fact that there weren't that many sidearms on the sprue, so there wasn't really enough for everyone to have one on their own. But again, that's not a big deal because you get so many spare bits with a sprue. And I'll just show you, after building the 5 guys, this is what's left of the sprue. So you can see this stack of arms and heads and extra weapons and so on. So pretty easy to just sort of snip off an extra weapon or two and then cut the arm bit away and use that as a sidearm, which is exactly what I've done with this guy with his side axe. So that had the hand attached, but easily enough to snip that off and yeah, and use it as a sidearm. So whilst it only comes with 4, you actually can end up having, 3 each probably if you felt so inclined. So that's just, oh, look at that cape, beautiful cape. I really like that. I'm looking forward to doing that on a few other guys in some slightly different colour schemes. Used a lot of contrast paints on these guys, so it's a fairly quick paint job. Custom painted a few of those shields, that one for example, but then the other ones, as you saw before, were from the little big man Dark Age Goth, or Dark Age set for Gripping Beast actually, but fit fine for these guys. So they are the ones basically made straight up from this kit, but I didn't stop there. I thought I should mix and match a few, so I did put a few with some components from the Dark Age Irish. So this guy is one of those. So he's about 50-50 Irish and Goth, and I reckon he comes out pretty nicely. Really happy with his cape. I've painted up, and yeah, the components are perfectly compatible. I did another one as a more ancient type of German. Stick him on. So he's got a head from Victrix and a shield from someone else. I think it's the old Wargames factory German set that shield came from. So he works pretty well as a generic, more ancient German. And as I've said in the beginning of the intro to this kit, that's about my only criticism. It doesn't have more ancient German style shields. I did want one with chainmail. They advertised that you can easily use the late Romans from Wargames Atlantic, and they fit together well. I haven't got any of them, but I did have a spare Victrix chainmail guy. He's actually from the Carthaginian set. I've just started putting him together, so he's a bit of a work in progress. The axe fits perfectly because he's actually got the arm without a hand, so that was almost ideal for that guy. So I'll paint him up and he should look pretty cool as a goth as well. So that's the majority of the Wargames Atlantic Goths. I think it's a brilliant set. It's got so many good options and potentials, and as I've said, the only thing, I wish they would put out a German shield set. Single sprue probably do it. You could have 5 or 6 different designs, and that would just give it a huge amount of extra versatility. But having said that, when the Franks set comes out, that'll be awesome to integrate with this, and maybe that'll have a bit more variety of shields in it to pad this out a bit. So that's them. I've just got a few other Gothic guys I'll show you. A bit of, again, from different manufacturers and different amount of kit bashing. Some cavalry. I've got one commander who's a Eureka figure. Beautiful metal guy. And then we've got, he's actually from their Beowulf series. And I've got some cavalry from the old Wargames factory with the worst horses on the market, but nonetheless they look half decent. Actually, they look like mules. Anyway, never mind them. Let's get some of these other guys off and we can put the rest of the cavalry up. I love this guy, the Draco. I think he's probably my favourite of the whole batch. Such a cool Draco. I'm going to paint a few more of them in different colour schemes. See how they look. I just went obviously pretty simple there with the bronze and the reds. Let's get that infantry away and we'll put some more cavalry up. This guy, the gripping beast, Gothic, heavy Gothic cavalry, is pretty cool. Somewhat dubious whether that was historically accurate to have cataphract type units for Goths, but anyway, and there's a more of a light cavalry Gothic trooper. So there we go, that's the Goths. I do hope you like them. I'm going to paint a few more in different ways, and as I say, as soon as I can get my hands on those Franks, I'll be kit bashing and putting some of them out. Right, see you around. Righto, the moment you've all been waiting for, the prize draw. So this has been a little while in the making. I've got a number of names here, and they're going to go in the hat, and one lucky winner is going to receive a free sprue of his excellent Wargames Atlantic Goths. So to get in, you had to be a subscriber and you had to make a comment on the video about the V&V miniatures. So there was 6 people who've qualified. They're all going to go in the draw. So if you see a name here, get excited. Right, who we got? Paul Jeffrey. We got the hat here. Going in the hat. European Miniature Man. Andrew Wilson. Gordon Steele. Bucko's Piffle. And JVC Paints. Alright. In the hat. Mix them around a bit. Not looking, promise, not looking. First one out is, who is it? Gordon Steele. Well done, Gordon. All right, so if you can contact me, give us your postal details. I will stick them in the mail as soon as I can. All right, all the best. See ya.